So begin the lesson in standing. Just stand over your feet and see how long your spine is. See which foot is carrying more weight than the other. And notice your head, if it's forward, if it's tilted to one side, if you're looking up, if you're looking down. Notice what you're seeing in the horizon right now. And just get a sense of how you are in standing. And notice where you are standing, because we're going to come back to this exact spot at the end of the lesson. So in standing, look over your right shoulder and see what you see. Just notice without trying, without straining, without going as far as you can without effort. And then come back to center. And now, without straining or trying or doing, look over your left shoulder and what do you see? And was it easier for you to go right or left? Okay, so now that you've got that snapshot, just go for a little walk. Listen to your feet. Listen to which foot is heavier, which foot is carrying more weight. You might be rolling out on a foot. You might be toeing off unevenly. So just see how it is when you're walking. And after you've walked for a bit, come and lie on your mat, and we'll begin. Sense your bones on the floor. And start with your legs, and notice which leg is more turned out. And how would we tell that without looking? We would tell by the contact with the floor. You'd be making more contact with the floor with your heel, or the calf, or the thigh. And then notice your hips and feel which hip feels higher. If you were going to roll over, is one hip ready to go? And then sense the length of your spine. How much space is there underneath your waist? When does your spine leave the mat and then come back? Or is it fully on the mat now? And how about your ribs? Is one side of your ribs making more contact than the other? Do you feel asymmetrical? Like one side is more comfortable on the floor and the other one isn't? Could be your shoulder blades digging in, or comfortable and flat. And then sense your arms. Where are they? Are the palms up? Are they pointing to your sides, or are they flat down on the floor? And are they both doing the same thing? And then sense your head. And begin to draw your nose a little side to side. And just notice how it feels to roll your head. Good. And then bend your knees and stand your feet relatively far apart. So they can be on sort of near the outside of the mat. And explore a movement of just shifting your weight from the toe side, the inner border of the right foot, to the outer border of the right foot. So it's a very small movement. You're just shifting your weight over your foot very slowly. And what do you notice up the line? Can you feel movement in your hip socket, in your groin? Do you feel a shift of weight in your shoulder blades? What do you notice when you're just moving that foot? And then let the movement get a little bit bigger. So you're going to take the foot to the right. and back home. And you're going to leave the left leg, the left knee is oriented toward the ceiling. It's not moving. You can gradually increase the range of motion little by little. And notice that if you're pushing yourself beyond a speed bump, that would be the point where if the movement feels sticky and you have to use effort in order to get further. So stay below that speed bump. Very important. Just going back and forth, back and forth. And then lengthen your legs and rest. And see, in resting, how you are different. Does one leg feel heavier or lighter? Does one leg feel longer, more rested on the floor? Which one would that be? And then bend your knees and stand your feet. And now just begin to take the left knee a little bit to the left and then back home. Start very small. You're just rolling over your foot to begin with. So you're just rolling over the foot, bringing it back home. Right knee stays poised in place. It's just the left knee moving left and right. Small movements. Notice any stickiness in your groin. Notice if this side is harder or easier than the first side that we did. Just the smallest movement. Pretend you're getting an FI. And the practitioner is just gently guiding your knee a little bit right and left, being very sensitive to not going beyond absolute ease. Okay, then lengthen your legs and rest. And again, notice differences. How do you feel? Good. Come back to that same position, bend your knees, stand your feet, and explore the movement of taking the right knee to the right. And this time, your knees can move a little bit bigger, and the left knee still stays oriented toward the ceiling, but it's okay if the pelvis lifts a little bit. So a little, that's too far. Will. No. Wait. Space your feet a little bit wider. Okay, take your knee gently and slowly out. And let the pelvis roll. And then come back home. Do it in little bites. There you go. That's it. There's a vast temptation to go to your maximum range. It's just sort of innate, especially in the Western culture. But in Feldenkrais, we want to approach it from the other side. And you'll see the reason for this when the lesson progresses. You'll see why we do it this way. Now, try this. So what would happen if as you're bringing your knee out to the left, Your heel slides a little bit to the left so that the knee is going to the right, but the heel is sliding. Does that make it a little easier? And you can start that by just sliding your heel a little bit left and right to get yourself going. And then next time your heel comes in, see if it makes it easier to open the knee out. So heel, right knee comes out, slide the heel in, and do it at the same time, Jeanette. So slide the heel in and then let the knee go out at the same time. It's a simultaneous movement. There you go. Okay, and then lengthen your legs and rest. And then come back to that position. Bend your knees, stand your feet. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So just with your feet standing, with your feet fairly wide, just begin to slide your left heel in and out by itself. So put more weight on the metatarsal, and you're just sliding your heel right and left. And then let that go. And now begin to open the knee to the left. So left knee goes a little bit left and then comes back home. A little bit left and comes back home. And as you go along, if you do just a little bit, the range of motion will increase naturally. Now, try adding that movement of sliding the heel in as you bring the knee out and see what that does to the movement. Does that make it easier for you to open your knee? Good. And then let that go, lengthen your legs and rest. And I'm going to read you a story that really impressed me. I don't know how far I can get. Moshe Feldenkrais was talking about how he didn't draw in his early life because there weren't any drawing lessons in the schools. One had to prepare for an active and socially useful life, not drawing. So when his book, Body and Mature Behavior, was published, he didn't realize how he had changed his future. And one morning, a medical doctor asked him if he had said he had read my book and asked if I had studied with Henrik Jacobi. He recognized in my book some of the things he had received from this great teacher. And he had difficulty believing it was the first time I had heard that name mentioned. To come to the point, he suggested that we should arrange for me to meet Henrik Jacobi for our mutual benefit. I guess it's Heinrich Jacobi lived at that time in Zurich and was much senior to me, not only in age, but in what I had believed was my personal discovery about things. He had been teaching for years to a distinguished group of disciples comprised of scientists, doctors, artists, and the like. So bend your knees and stand your feet. And now, with your arms out to the side somewhere comfortable, take both knees to the right toward the floor and back. Go slowly and stay in control. You're not going to let your knees flop. See how your pelvis rolls. Your left side wants to lengthen. Your left shoulder wants to lift a little bit. Let it happen many times. Keep going. Knees to the right. Letting the pelvis roll. Feeling the movement all the way up your torso. And as you do that, now begin to let your head roll a little bit at the same time. So knees roll, feel one of the shoulder blades lightening, head rolls, and then everything comes back home. Can you coordinate this with your breath? Beautiful, Jeanette. That's it. So everything's gliding. It's like you're on ball bearings. And rest. Lengthen your legs. Notice the difference. So a few months later, when Feldenkrais could avail himself of time, he went to meet Jacoby at the date that they had appointed. And he had a lot of talks with him. But the first overwhelming experience in drawing, which I had with him, concerns the kind of learning we're dealing with here. Feldenkrais was an athlete of some repute. He was strong. Jacoby was a tiny, fragile little man who had learned to walk when he was 7 years old. He looked like and was a hunchback, but moved gracefully. Even so, my first impression was that the man was no match for me. I felt in the way back in my consciousness as though I was certain that I had done the right thing to visit him. And after a few minutes, he explained that I was being recorded and photographed by his camera, and he offered me a sheet of drawing paper, charcoal, and a soft piece of bread he used as an eraser. He asked me to draw as best I could the lamp on the piano in front of me. I told him I had never drawn anything before except for the technical drawings I had to do for my engineering degree before reading physics at the Sorbonne, which brought me later to the Joliet-Curie lab, my doctorate, and all the rest. He replied that he knew all that, but that nonetheless I should try, as he had something else in mind rather than just to see me draw. So I drew a vertical cylinder with a truncated cone at the upper end and a kind of ellipse at the bottom for a stand. It looked to me to be a lampshade, as good as I thought a lampshade could be drawn by me. He looked at the drawing and said it was the thought of the lamp and not the lamp. And I realized that I had drawn the abstract notion of the word lamp. All the same, I reported only a painter could do what he expected of me, and that I was no painter, as I had said before I started. Okay, bend your knees, stand your feet. So now slowly take the knees to the left. And then pause in the middle and begin to slide your heels to the right, back and forth, just by themselves. So slide the heels to the right and then back to the left. Slide the heels. I'm not seeing your heels moving, Jeanette. Slide your heels to the right and then to the left. Lift them a little bit off the mat so they're not so sticky. Now slide them toward me. That's better. And just do that movement. And now next time your heels go right, let your knees go left. And do it that way. So you're sliding your heels as your knees are going to the other side. And go back and forth That's goodwill. Exactly. Now try widening your feet just slightly and see what happens when you do that. There you go. Yeah, see that? So now pretend you're kind of in a hammock and the wind is sort of blowing you and it's carrying your body a little bit to the left and then back home. Good. Pause and rest. Legs long. Notice your contact with the floor. So Jacoby insisted that Feldenkrais try again and draw only what he saw and not what he thought he saw. Feldenkrais said, I just did not know how one draws what one sees. In my, and maybe also in your way of thinking, he had asked me to be a painter when I was not a painter. Tell me, what do you see? A lamp, I said. Do you see any of the outlines which you have drawn? I had to admit that I could not identify in my drawing a single line of the real lamp, except that the proportions were more or less of those of the lamp in front of me. Do you see lines? Again, I had to admit that none of the lines in my drawing were actually to be seen. If you do not see lines, then what do you see in general? They see light. Then why do you not draw the lighter and darker patches which you see? You have charcoal in your hand, and if you put too much of it on the paper, you have the bread to remove the superfluous and obtain some grading of the patches so that they become more as you see them. Bend your knees and stand your feet. Now we're going to go from side to side. And just take your knees a little to the side, on the left, a little on the right, languidly back and forth. That's right. You'll notice that one knee, the top knee, goes a little forward, right, of the other one. So just let the knees flow from right and left. You can include your pelvis. And don't forget the sliding of the heels. Try widening your feet a little bit, Jeanette. Now try. Now slide your heels. Right heels to the right, knees to the left. Good. Now come back to center. Heels to the left, knees to the right. You feel that? Now notice what's happening above you. In your shoulder blades, in your neck. Does one side of your head get lighter when you do this? Good. And then pause. Stand your feet. And now hold one wrist in each hand and rest the wrists on your forehead. On your forehead. And now keep the knees standing and begin to draw your right elbow to the right and your left elbow to the left. And because you're on your forehead, your head is going to roll with it, right? So draw your right elbow to the right, head rolls right. Left elbow to the left, head rolls left. Now, all of you have had an FI with me. I've rolled every single one of your heads. So this will probably feel like me rolling your head, I hope. So go right and left, back and forth. First one elbow and then the other goes toward the floor, not to the floor. It's a direction, not a destination. And don't turn your head. The head's only moving because it's connected with your wrist. And explore and notice how your back and shoulders and ribs all have to participate in this movement. Okay, and then let that go and rest. Lengthen your legs. Notice your contact with the floor. So back at the art studio, Feldenkrais took another sheet of paper, and this time he started with dark patches of charcoal where there was no light. Then it dawned on him that nowhere were there brighter patches than where I had put no charcoal on the paper at all. The stand was not a cylinder, actually. The shape on the top was not a truncated cone, and the bottom was not an ellipse. Feldenkrais said, I had extraordinary feelings when I looked at the assembly of the charcoal rubbings and the parts removed with the bread kneaded between my fingers. This drawing was not mine, but one in which I thought only a painter could do this. I had not even tried to think of that way before because it had felt to me to be like cheating, pretending to be what I was not. Bend your knees and stand your feet. Hold one elbow in each opposite hand over your chest. So this time you're not resting on your forehead. That's right, Jeanette. Now, take the elbows from side to side and let your head roll with the movement. Do that several times. Head's rolling as the elbows go right, head rolls right. As the elbows go left, head rolls left. And it should not feel effortful. It's only happening because of the kinetic chain. What's happening with your shoulder blades? How much can you relax your neck and let the movement happen because of it's kind of like a current in the water. Part of you moves, then another part of you moves. Okay, now let your knees go from side to side with the movement. So as your elbows and head go right, your knees go right, and then you come back to center, and then go left, and flow back and forth, right and left, gradually making the movement a little bit bigger, and a little bit bigger, flowing. And then as you roll to your right side, let the elbows drop to the floor above your head so that your head can lift and then come back to center and go the other way. So you're rolling from side to side, and you can almost roll to your belly if you want. You could if you wanted, but just lift your head. So as you roll to the right, arms come up and lift up so that there's nothing to prevent you from rolling onto the belly. Good. And then let that go and rest. And when you get the rest, let go of all movement. Let the earth support you. Okay, bend your knees and stand your feet again. One hand on each elbow over chest or resting on the forehead with holding your wrists, or actually hold your elbows if you can. Take the knees from side to side, but take your elbow and head in the opposite direction. So the knees go left while the elbows and face go right, and vice versa. Both knees left, rolling right. That's right, Jeanette. Now come back home, do the other way. And here you're differentiating the upper and lower body. It's not an undifferentiated movement. And very often in Feldenkrais, we do both. And compare the movements from side to side. Is it really easy for you to roll right, or is it harder for you to roll left? Good. And then let that go and rest. So back to Feldenkrais in the studio. He says, I believe you are understanding for yourself the extraordinary transformation that was occurring within me. I am not a painter, but then who is? When I do or act painter, the result is what only a painter can do. Am I being changed? Am I losing my identity? I did not really think in those terms at that moment, but I felt unsafe because of the change which operated in me under Jacoby's questioning. He did not show me how to do it. He didn't show me how to do it. Feldenkrais doesn't show us how to do this. I'm sitting here teaching you, but I'm not demonstrating. You're learning from the movement itself. That's why they call it awareness through movement. And this can teach you amazing things you never knew about your own body. Bend your knees and stand your feet. And take the knees right, the face and elbow left, and stay there. Knees right, face and elbow left. So you're looking away from me, Jeanette. Your knees are to the right, resting on the floor almost. Now here, you're going to move your pelvis up and down. So bring your tail forward and back, bring your knee forward and back. And you're doing that, and this is the constraint. So just do a few of those movements. So stay there, Jeanette, and move your pelvis. And now, let that go and just bring your knees right and left again and see if it feels any different. Yeah, that's it, Will. There we go. Movement easier. So now, this time, take the knees from side to side. And this time, let your face go with your knees and the elbow opposite both. So your face is going with the knees and the elbow is going opposite. So bring your knees to the right, Jeanette. Take your elbows to the left and look to your right. Now go the opposite. That's right. So knees, that's perfect. So keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And now stay with the knees and face to the left and the elbows to the right. That's right. Now do that movement of the pelvis. So you're thrusting your pelvis forward in that odd configuration. Just do a few of those. It's an interesting thing to do. Feel how your knee is moving forward, the top knee is moving forward and back. And now stand your knees and once again, take them right and left and see if that's made the movement a little bit more accessible, a little bit easier. Just go side to side a few times with your knees. And when you've had enough, you can keep playing, but when you've had enough, you can lengthen your legs and rest. How is your contact with the floor? Almost there. Okay. So back to the studio. When I left Jacoby and went to my room, I saw there on a table a glass jug half filled with water. I felt an inner challenge, no, an inner conviction, which expressed to me in an urge to breathe, which expressed itself to me an urge to reproduce the jug on paper. Childishly, I also thought that I could show Jacoby that I was not really so inept as I appeared to him. I did not draw any lines at all, but instead used minor touches, and the rest was just blobs of light and dark. When it was finished, you could see the level of the water, the play of light in the water as distinct from the light on the glass, although both were transparent. I felt I had produced a masterpiece, and I believed I had grown taller by at least 6 inches. It turned out that there is no limit to the quality of being a painter, and I have to make an effort not to tell you how I became a real painter during the few weeks when I danced with Jacoby, who never taught or showed me how to paint or draw. With his tongue in his cheek, he asked me why I did not follow my own teachings when I drew. Bend your knees and stand your feet with your arms near your side. Repeat that initial movement of taking your knees from side to side that we did in the beginning, letting your body participate however it wants. So remember I asked you to move both knees to the right and both knees to the left. Try that now. Can you tell a difference? Is the movement more fluid, more accessible? And then roll to your side and sit. And sit like a teenager with your feet on the floor and your hands supporting you. You can use your fists. So the feet are on the floor flat, wide. And now you're going to take your left hand and put it on the floor next to your right knee and look over your right shoulder. So there you go. Look over your shoulder and then go the other way. Let your knees participate. What would make it easier? Yes, that's right. Perfect, Will. Then go the other way and go back and forth, just look over your right shoulder and then look over your left shoulder, letting your arm cross your body. That's right. Look over your shoulder, Jeanette. Look to your left. There. Now come back and look to your right. Look over your shoulder. Look over your shoulder to the right. There you go. And then you can use that movement to spiral yourself up to standing. And go back to that spot where you stood when we first started. And actually, if you could both point your cameras so that I can see you, that would be great. Okay, so remember what it was like to look over your right shoulder earlier? Try it now. Look over your right shoulder. How much of you can participate in this? What about your hips? What do you see now? How far over your right shoulder can you see now? And then look over your left shoulder. How is it different? And now go for a walk. Notice any difference in your gait. Maybe your feet feel different on the floor. Maybe your spine feels different. Maybe the carriage of your head feels different. What do you notice about walking? And if you want, you could look a little bit right and left as you're walking and see how that goes. And then you can come back and have a seat and tell me how the lesson went. So Jeanette.
I definitely feel looser and I can see further on both sides than when I started. And also, my legs were very shaky at the beginning on the floor, and they calmed down, so it was a smoother flow toward the end. And my body feels calmer. I feel calmer, much calmer.
You know, when we do these cross patterning things like walking, anything where it's crossing the pattern, that's a natural sedative. It's why you feel better if you're upset about something and you go for a walk, is because it's soothing to the nervous system to do that. So I'm not surprised because there was a lot of that going on. Thank you. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, if you think of something, you can. So Will, how was the lesson? I can't hear you. You're muted.
It was great. Thank you. I think the biggest thing I got out of it was like this like much more keen awareness of the hip joint, or like kind of how the legs plug into the hips.
Yeah. And could you tell how they helped you look?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's true that like in the first thing, I wasn't thinking like use my hips to look. And I mean, if you use the hips the second time, it's like night and day. But it's true also that I never really think about like the hips as part of something to look over my shoulder. And it's just like a cheat code. You can just look so much more instead of like straining yourself if you like do the full chain. So
yeah. Feldenkrais, I want to show you guys something because I don't know if you got this part, but this is not what Feldenkrais teachers are supposed to do, but I'm going to cheat here because I want you to see that part of the lesson. It's a lot of fun that you could try if you want to try doing it again. Let me see if I can get my camera on my net. It's a little bit crazy here. Okay. Okay, so tell me, can you see me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so remember when we were doing this and I said to, bring your hands up? You could do it this way. It's so much fun. You bring your arms up and you could actually, they have so many great rolling lessons in Feldenkrais because he was a martial artist. And so he would break down these things. But there's one I will teach you at some point that you just roll and roll and roll. And it's so wonderful. But anyway, if you do decide to do this one again, I'll put it on my channel, and it's going to be unlisted. So you'll have the link, so you'll be able to see it. You could also share the lesson with anybody if you wanted to share it. And now I realize I keep making the same mistake. When I record a lesson for you, it destroys the class thing. So now I've got to send out an email to tell everybody there's going to be a new class because we won't be able to use this link anymore. But I did want, I did want Beth Ann, because she would probably love this lesson, and probably Peggy too. She likes to roll. So, and you might want to do it again. So it's there. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like the story too.
Pardon?
I like the story too, like the exercise, and then you give us a little bit. And then...
Isn't that a great story?
It is a great
It's
story.
like, how could I not have seen? And the guy never, ever picked up his own charcoal. He never, ever told Feldenkrais how he was not seeing what was right in front of him.
Right.
It's from one of Feldenkrais's books, which is actually a little bit, it's got some good stuff in it, and I will do more stories. My own teacher used to do jokes during the breaks, but I'm not always the best joke teller, and but he could tell a joke. Oh my God, he could tell an 8-year-old joke. You know, like what did the 0 say to the 8?
What is
Nice belt.
Oh,
Anyway, I'm going to stop, but we'll have another wonderful lesson next Friday. Now, these lessons can go on. So notice, maybe it's easier for you to reach up for something, or you're driving and suddenly it's not such an effort to look over your shoulder to, see who's behind you, or, whatever. Maybe you feel lighter on your feet. How do you feel, Jeanette? Do you feel a little more energized?
yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
little more energy. Okay. All right. So we're going to sign off. I'll send you an email for the new link. Oh God. I'm sorry. But sometimes it's worth it to have a recording.
It's more flexible. You're
Yeah.
keeping it
It's not a
flexible.
big deal. We can pick a new link.
I know, but there's always somebody who goes to the old link and then they get freaked out, and I get all these texts and everything. I got to talk to those people at StreamYard. Anyway, I'd better stop recording. Okay.
All
So
right.
we'll see you all next Tuesday.
Yes. See you
Take care.
Tuesday. And thank
Okay.
you. Have a good weekend.
Have a nice weekend. Ciao.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.